Commander Hannah Park stood at the viewport of the research vessel Horizon, watching the asteroid belt drift by like a river of stone. 3 years they'd spent searching for signs of alien life, and all they had to show for it were some unusual mineral formations and a collection of space rocks. The United Earth Council was getting impatient. Funding would dry up soon if they didn't find something substantial. "Commander, you need to see this," called Tay, her chief scientist. His voice carried an excitement she hadn't heard in months. Hannah made her way to the excavation bay where her team huddled around a metallic object about the size of a small car. It gleamed with an inner light that pulsed in slow, deliberate patterns. "We found it buried inside asteroid KX-297, Tay explained, unable to keep still. "It's giving off energy readings unlike anything in our database." "Is it dangerous?" Hannah asked, approaching cautiously. "Not that we can tell, but look at this." Tay pressed a sequence on his tablet, and a holographic display burst from the object's surface. Star charts, mathematical formulas, and symbols flowing in 3 dimensions. "It's a data cache," whispered Jin, the team's linguist. "And it's ancient. Carbon dating puts it at roughly 50,000 years old." Hannah's heart raced. After years of searching empty space, they'd finally found proof. Humanity wasn't alone. Over the next week, the team worked around the clock. Jin made the first breakthrough when he identified repeated symbol clusters throughout the data. They called themselves the Masters, he announced during their daily briefing. At least that's the closest translation. They weren't from our solar system, but they visited Earth. Frequently. "Visitors?" Hannah questioned. "You mean like ancient astronaut theories?" "More than visitors," Jin corrected. "The data suggests they had outposts throughout our system, but something happened. They disappeared suddenly." As days passed, more pieces came together. The Masters had been the dominant species in this part of the galaxy, advanced, powerful, and numerous, until they simply vanished. But the most shocking discovery came when Sue, their anthropologist, matched imagery from the cache to ancient human artifacts. "These symbols," she said, pointing to stone carvings from civilizations separated by oceans and millennia. "They're identical to ones in the cache. The same designs appear in Sumerian tablets, Egyptian tombs, Mayan stelae, and even cave paintings in Australia." "Are you saying these masters influenced human development?" Hannah asked. "I'm saying the connection is deeper than influence," Sue replied. "These aren't just similar designs, they're exact matches down to the millimeter." That night, Hannah couldn't sleep. The implications were too enormous. If advanced aliens had interacted with ancient humans, what did that mean for human history? For their evolution? For their place in the cosmos? Her thoughts were interrupted by an alarm. She raced to the bridge to find her crew in a state of controlled panic. "Massive object just appeared at the edge of sensor range," said Day, her navigator. "It's moving toward us." On the main screen, a vessel unlike anything Hannah had ever seen approached. It was massive, at least 3 kilometers long, with a design that seemed both organic and mechanical. Light rippled across its surface like water. "No energy signature matching known propulsion systems," reported Kyung from her station. "It's just there." "Hail them," Hannah ordered, straightening her uniform. "No response on any frequency," Kyung replied after several attempts. The alien ship continued its approach, unhurried and silent. As it drew closer, Hannah noticed patterns on its hull, patterns identical to those in the data cache. "It's them," she whispered. "The Masters." "Commander," Jin said suddenly, his voice shaking. "The cache, it's reacting to the ship's presence." On a secondary screen, Hannah saw the artifact glowing brightly, its symbols spinning faster. "Could it be a beacon?" Tay suggested. "Maybe we accidentally activated it when we found it." Before Hannah could respond, the alien vessel stopped, holding position less than a kilometer from the horizon. No communication, no further movement. "What do they want?" Hannah wondered aloud. As if in answer, the cache emitted a high-pitched tone that made everyone wince. Then it projected a new series of images, human figures standing among stars, holding technology beyond current understanding. Jin, what are we seeing? Hana demanded. I think it's showing humans, but not as we are now, as we could be. Jin's eyes widened. The translation matrix is aligning. This isn't just about the masters. It's about us. The alien vessel suddenly began to glow with the same light as the cache. Hana felt a strange tingling in her temples, a pressure building behind her eyes. Everyone brace, she shouted as their sensors detected an energy buildup from the vessel. The wave hit them before anyone could react, not destructive, but powerful enough to overwhelm their systems. As emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red, Hana realized something profound was happening. This wasn't first contact in the traditional sense, it was a reunion. As their systems came back online, every screen on the horizon displayed the same message in perfect English. The children have grown. The legacy awaits. Hana knew, with absolute certainty, that humanity's understanding of its place in the universe was about to change forever. Hana gripped the edge of the conference table as the room full of officials stared at her in stunned silence. The interstellar council chambers, normally a place of measured debate, now hummed with tension. Through the dome ceiling, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. "You're certain about this translation?" asked Director Lee, an older man with steel-gray hair who headed Earth's science division. "As certain as we can be," Hana replied, pointing to the holographic images hovering above the table. The message was broadcast in 17 different languages, including several extinct ones. But the most surprising was Proto-Indo-European, a language that hasn't been spoken in thousands of years. And it said, "The children have grown. The legacy awaits?" asked Counselor Wu, her face pale. "Yes. The same message, repeated exactly, in all languages," Hana confirmed. 3 weeks had passed since the encounter in the asteroid belt. What started as an isolated incident had exploded into a global phenomenon. Reports flooded in from every human settlement, Mars colonies, lunar bases, the Europa Research Station, and dozens of outposts throughout the solar system. "Show them the Olympus Mons footage," Hana said to her assistant. The hologram shifted to show Mars' massive volcano. For centuries it had been just a mountain until yesterday. Now strange lights pulsed beneath its surface and a structure had emerged from its southern slope. This was completely buried until 18 hours ago, Hana explained. The Martian colonists report it just rose from the ground like it was waking up. Similar events were happening across human space. On Earth, ancient sites, places like Göbekli Tepe, the underwater structures off Japan, and the desert lines of Nazca, had begun emitting low-frequency signals. Archaeological digs revealed hidden chambers filled with technology that defied analysis. And in orbit around Neptune, a massive ring structure had somehow activated after being mistaken for a natural formation for decades. "The vessels have appeared near 15 different worlds now," said Admiral Yoon, head of Earth's defense forces. 7 near our colonies, 8 near systems controlled by other species. None have taken hostile action. Hana nodded. "That's right. And every species affected has contacted us asking for help interpreting the signals. They're getting the same message, but none of them understand why the vessels mention children or what legacy they're referring to." "What about the Vox Imperium?" asked Director Lee. "They've been pushing at our borders for years. Any word from them?" The room grew quiet. The Vox, an aggressive coalition of 3 species, had been humanity's greatest threat since first contact 30 years ago. Their ships were more advanced, their weapons more powerful, and their territorial ambitions clear. "That's the strangest development," Admiral Yoon said, bringing up a tactical display. "They've withdrawn all forces from disputed territories. Completely. Our scout ships report their battle fleets returning to their home systems at maximum speed." "Why would they do that?" someone asked. Hana cleared her throat. "We intercepted a transmission from one of their command vessels. Apparently these ancient ships have appeared near their worlds too. But they're not just observing the Vox. They've positioned themselves in attack formation. The implications hung in the air. Whatever these vessels were, they seemed protective of humanity while threatening to the Vox." "There's more," Hana continued. hesitant to share the most disturbing finding. The data cache we found contains genetic information. Our scientists have compared it to human DNA and found matches, specific sequences that don't appear in any other Earth species. Are you suggesting these masters tampered with human evolution? Counselor Wu asked, horrified. Not exactly, Hana replied. The markers appear to be dormant information storage, like genetic memory, but engineered. And here's where it gets really strange. When we exposed human tissue samples to the frequencies broadcast by the vessels, she played a video showing cells under a microscope. As the frequency played, certain parts of the DNA lit up, restructuring themselves before their eyes. What are we seeing? Director Lee whispered. Those cells began producing proteins never before documented in humans, Hana explained, and brain tissue samples showed new neural pathways forming spontaneously. The room erupted in worried conversation until Director Lee called for silence. Has anyone been directly exposed to these broadcasts? He demanded. Hana hesitated. Yes, my linguist Jin. He was working with the broadcast patterns when he changed. Changed how? Several voices asked at once. He suddenly understood the alien language. Completely. He said it was like remembering something he'd forgotten. Then he started drawing these. Hana displayed Jin's sketches, intricate technical diagrams for devices beyond current human engineering. When CQ questioned, Jin couldn't explain how he knew these designs. He just said they felt right. Medical scans show unusual activity in parts of his brain normally considered vestigial. Before anyone could respond, an aide burst into the room. Sir, we're receiving reports from Luna Base. Another vessel has appeared, the largest yet. It's broadcasting directly to Earth. On the main screen, a massive ship, easily 20 kilometers long, moved into position above Earth's North Pole. From its surface, beams of light touched down at points across the planet. Those are all ancient sites, Hana realized aloud. They're connecting the dots. As they watched, millions of comm devices across Earth simultaneously activated. The message played everywhere, in every language, reaching every human ear. Children of the stars, your slumber ends. What was hidden awakens. What was forgotten returns. The legacy is yours to reclaim. Around the table, several counselors clutched their heads as if in pain. Hana felt it too. A pressure behind her eyes, a buzzing in her mind like static clearing from an old radio. And then, for a moment, she saw images. Vast fleets among the stars, worlds transformed by technology indistinguishable from magic, and humans, or beings so like humans they could be nothing else, standing at the center of it all. They're not talking to us, Hana whispered as the vision faded. They're talking to something inside us. The medical bay of the International Space Station Athena was crowded with equipment that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. Hana watched through the observation window as Jin lay on the examination table, eyes closed, sensors attached to his temples. On screens around him, his brain activity displayed patterns unlike anything the doctors had ever seen. It's spreading, Dr. Yun said, showing Hana the latest global reports. We've confirmed 347 cases like Jin's across Earth and the colonies. People suddenly understanding technologies they've never seen, speaking languages they've never learned. Any pattern to who's affected? Hana asked, unable to look away from her friend. Jin seemed peaceful, but sometimes his fingers would twitch, as if working on invisible machinery. That's the fascinating part, Dr. Yun replied. It's not random. The affected individuals all share certain genetic markers, the same ones that match the data in your asteroid cache. A week had passed since the massive ship had positioned itself above Earth's North Pole. 7 alien delegations had arrived in the Sol system since then, all seeking answers about the ancient vessels appearing in their territories, all asking why these vessels seemed to recognize humans as important. What exactly happens when someone awakens? Hana asked, using the term that had become common. Dr. Yun guided her to a quiet corner of the lab. It begins with headaches and vivid dreams. Then comes knowledge they couldn't possibly have. Engineering principles, mathematical formulas, star maps of regions we haven't explored. Some report memories that aren't their own, living on worlds that aren't Earth, using technologies we can't comprehend. Are they dangerous? Hana asked, thinking of Jin's gentle nature. No. If anything, they're overwhelmed. Imagine suddenly remembering another life you never lived. Dr. Yun replied. We've detected no aggression, no personality changes. They're still themselves, just more. An alert sounded on Dr. Yun's tablet. She frowned at the screen. The Council is broadcasting their decision in 5 minutes. We should watch. They moved to the station's observation deck where others had already gathered around the large screen. The Earth hung below them, beautiful and seemingly unchanged despite the alien ship still hovering over its pole. The broadcast began with Director Lee, his face grave, as he addressed not just humanity, but the 7 alien delegations now orbiting Earth. After careful consideration of all evidence, the Interstellar Council has reached a consensus regarding the phenomenon now known as the Awakening. First, we confirm that the genetic markers triggering these episodes are present in varying degrees throughout the human population. Second, we have determined these markers are not natural. They were engineered into our genome likely tens of thousands of years ago. A murmur went through the crowd watching. Hana felt her stomach tighten. Third, Director Lee continued, we believe the evidence suggests that humanity's relationship with these masters was not that of creation, but of continuation. The screen split to show reaction shots from the alien delegations. The tall, gray-skinned Altarians looked alarmed. The insectoid Vesh representatives clicked their mandibles rapidly in what Hana knew was their expression of surprise. To our honored guests, Director Lee addressed the delegations directly. Our scientists have compared the genetic memory patterns emerging in awakened humans with the data caches found throughout our system. We believe the species you call the Masters, the civilization that once dominated this region of space before mysteriously vanishing, did not create humans. Rather, humans are the Masters, or at least their direct descendants. The observation deck erupted in shocked conversations. Hana gripped the railing, her mind racing. Could it be true? Were humans not the young species they'd always believed themselves to be, but instead the remnants of an ancient, fallen civilization? The screen now showed Jin, who had apparently been invited to address the council. He looked tired, but focused. What I've seen in these memories, Jin said carefully, suggests our ancestors faced some catastrophic threat, something they called the Void. They couldn't defeat it through conventional means, so they implemented a desperate plan. They separated their civilization into 2 parts, the technology, which was hidden throughout the galaxy in dormant ships and outposts, and the people who were reduced. Reduced? A council member asked off-screen. Genetically simplified, Jin explained. They encoded their knowledge, their history, their technology into specialized DNA sequences, then suppressed their own development. They became primitive. They became us, starting over on Earth while their technology slept, waiting for the day their descendants would evolve back to a point where they could reclaim their legacy. On another screen, a medical readout showed brain scans of awakened individuals compared to normal humans. In the awakened, parts of the brain normally dormant glowed with activity. The frequencies broadcast by the ancient vessels are keys, Dr. Yun explained to those watching in the observation deck. They unlock neural pathways that have always been present in human brains but remained inactive. Not everyone has the same level of encoded information. It varies by individual. Back on the main screen, the council was addressing the growing crisis. Reports showed that some people feared the awakened, calling them changed or no longer human. Others hailed them as the next step in human evolution. The council has decided, Director Lee announced, that we must pursue this awakening cautiously but openly. All humans have the right to know about their heritage, but no one will be forced to activate these memories if they choose not to. The broadcast continued. Hana felt a strange pressure building behind her eyes. The same sensation she'd experienced during the first broadcast from the alien vessel. She gripped the railing tighter as images flashed through her mind. Star systems she'd never seen, technology she couldn't comprehend, and a darkness spreading between galaxies that filled her with instinctive dread. When her vision cleared, Dr. Yun was looking at her with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked. Hana nodded slowly. I think I'm starting to remember." On the screen, representatives from the 7 alien delegations were speaking. The Altarian ambassadors' translated words echoed in the observation deck. "If humans are indeed the descendants of the Masters, then we face a grave question. What threat was so terrible that the most advanced civilization in the galaxy chose to erase itself rather than fight? And if that threat is returning, will the awakened children of the Masters be ready to face it?" As if in answer, the massive vessel above Earth's pole pulsed with light, sending another wave of activating frequencies across the planet. Below them, cities lit up with the glow of ancient technology coming to life after millennia of slumber. The legacy was awakening, but so too, perhaps, was the enemy that had driven humanity to such desperate measures long ago. The Horizon's engines hummed as Hana stared at the tactical display, watching the red dots multiply. Each one represented a Vox Imperium warship, and they were no longer retreating. They were advancing, a massive armada cutting through space toward human colonies. 38 hours until they reached Nova Terra, Admiral Yoon reported, his holographic figure flickering slightly in the ship's command center. "We've evacuated who we could, but there are still 12 million colonists who won't make it out. In time." Hana rubbed her temples, trying to sort the flood of memories that weren't fully hers from her immediate concerns. 3 months had passed since she'd begun awakening to the genetic memories encoded in her DNA. Like many others, she received fragments rather than a complete picture, flashes of knowledge about technology, star charts, and a growing sense of impending doom. "Have they responded to any communication attempts?" she asked. "Just one message, broadcast on all frequencies," replied Q, her communications officer. "The false inheritors must be purged before the ascension. They've sent the same to every species harboring the ancient vessels." The Vox Imperium had maintained an eerie silence for weeks after the first appearances of the ancient vessels. Then, without warning, they had launched simultaneous attacks against human settlements and the territories of the 7 other species who had aligned with humanity. What changed? Hana wondered aloud. Why attack now? Jin looked up from the ancient console they'd salvaged from the Mars installation. Since his awakening, he'd become their expert on the recovered technology, though even he understood only fragments. "I think they found something," he said quietly. "Something that gave them part of the truth, but not all of it." The door slid, open as Sue entered the command center. Once the Horizon's anthropologist, she now coordinated between fully awakened humans and those still struggling with fragments of memory. Dark circles under her eyes testified to sleepless nights. "We've decoded more of the genetic memories," she announced. "And I think Jin is right. The Vox found something, but they misunderstood it." She connected her tablet to the main display. Images flashed across the screen, star maps, technical diagrams, and scenes of a civilization that looked both familiar and alien. Buildings that seemed to grow rather than being constructed, vehicles that moved without visible propulsion, and humans, unmistakably humans, though slightly different, standing among it all. "The Vox discovered one of the memory caches," Sue explained. "But unlike us, they couldn't access the genetic keys. They could only see the historical records showing that the species they've feared and respected as the Masters looked remarkably like humans. They think we're imposters," Hana realized. "Pretenders trying to claim the legacy of the Masters. Worse," Jin added. "They think we're some kind of biological weapon created by the Masters, designed to look like them but programmed to activate their technology when the time was right." A silence fell over the command center as the implication sank in. To the Vox, humans weren't just rivals, they were abominations. "That's why they said, 'false inheritors,'" Admiral Yoon's hologram nodded. "They believe they're protecting the galaxy from us. If only they knew the whole truth," Hana said bitterly. Over the past months, the fragments of memory had formed a clearer picture. Humanity hadn't been created by the Masters. They were the Masters, or rather, what the Masters had become after, implementing a desperate plan of survival. Facing an enemy they couldn't defeat, an entity or force they called the Void that consumed entire star systems. The Masters had made an unimaginable choice. They encoded their knowledge, their history, and their technology into their own DNA, then used their most advanced biotechnology to regress themselves evolutionarily. They became primitive, starting over on Earth while their ships and outposts went dormant, scattered throughout the galaxy. All to hide from the Void, to become too simple, too primitive to be detected by whatever sense this enemy used to find advanced civilizations. "Show them the latest readings," Hana told Q. The tactical display zoomed out, revealing the larger galaxy. At the far edge beyond explored space, sensors detected strange disturbances, ripples in space-time that defied explanation. "Whatever the Void is," Hana said quietly, "I think it's coming back. The ancient vessels activated because they detected its approach. They're trying to wake us up before it's too late." The ship shuddered suddenly, alarms blaring. "Impact on decks 5 through 7, shouted the tactical officer. "We've got multiple Vox strike craft approaching," Hana snapped back to the immediate crisis. "Battle stations, all personnel to emergency positions." As the crew scrambled, the ship rocked again. Through the viewport, Hana could see the sleek, predatory shapes of Vox fighters, their weapons leaving trails of energy as they strafed the horizon. "We can't fight them conventionally," Jin said, working frantically at the ancient console. "Their technology is still more advanced than our current ships." "What about the ancient vessels?" Admiral Yoon asked. "Can we activate them to defend our colonies?" Jin shook his head in frustration. "They respond to genetic commands from fully awakened masters, fully awakened humans. But the awakening process is inconsistent, fragmented. No one has fully awakened yet, not completely." Hana stared at the tactical display, watching more red dots appear. The Vox were committing their entire fleet to this assault, determined to wipe out humanity before they could reclaim their ancient legacy. "There has to be a way to speed up the process," she insisted. "The genetic memories are there in all of us. We just need to access them fully." Sue looked up suddenly, her eyes wide. "There might be. The ancient vessel above Earth's pole, it's not just broadcasting activation signals. I think it's a template, a complete genetic key. If we could amplify its signal, we could trigger a mass awakening," Jin finished her thought. "Not just fragments, but complete restoration of ancestral memory." Another impact shook the ship violently. Emergency lights flashed as systems failed across the horizon. "Hull breach." "On deck 3, someone shouted. "Sealing emergency bulkheads." Through the chaos, Hana made her decision. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to reach that vessel." "Commander, the Vox fleet is between us and Earth," Q reminded her. "We'd be flying straight into their main armada." "Then we fly through them," Hana said firmly. "If we don't reach that signal amplifier, there won't be a humanity left to save." As the horizon's engines roared to life, Hana looked again at the distant disturbances at the galaxy's edge. The ancient enemy was coming. The Vox were attacking, and humanity's only hope lay in remembering who they truly were, before it was too late. Earth hung before them, a blue marble wrapped in clouds and light, impossibly beautiful against the darkness of space. Hana could hardly believe they'd made. The horizon limped into orbit, hull breaches patched with emergency sealant, life support operating on minimal power. Of the original crew of 43, only 26 remained. "The Vox fleet is 30 minutes behind us," Q reported, voice hoarse from hours of calling out danger warnings. "Their main battle group is still engaging our defensive line at Jupiter, but they've dispatched pursuit vessels." Through the viewport, Hana could see the ancient vessel, what they now knew was called the Keystone, still positioned above Earth's North Pole. Its surface rippled with patterns of light that seemed almost alive, responding to some rhythm only it could hear. "Status of the amplification equipment?" Hana asked, turning to Jin and Sue. Jin gestured to the makeshift array they'd assembled from salvaged parts and ancient technology. Ready as it'll ever be. But Hana, he hesitated. We still don't know what a complete awakening will do to people. The fragments were overwhelming enough. We don't have a choice, Hana replied, thinking of the colony worlds already lost to the Vox assault. Nova Terra had fallen yesterday. 12 million lives snuffed out because humanity wasn't ready. Wasn't yet what it once had been. How many will be affected? Anyone with the receptor genes, Sue explained. About 60% of the human population has enough genetic markers to experience at least partial awakening. Maybe 10% have the complete set for full restoration. 10%. Nearly 1 billion people suddenly remembering another life, their true heritage as the masters. The council is hailing us, Q announced. Director Lee's face appeared on the main screen, looking older than when Hana had last seen him just weeks ago. Commander Park, the defensive line cannot hold much longer. The Vox have committed their entire fleet to this assault. We're ready to proceed with the amplification, Hana reported. We'll need to link directly to the Keystone vessel. The risks, Director Lee began, are nothing compared to extinction, Hana finished firmly. The disturbances at the galaxy's edge are growing. Whatever the void is, it's coming, just as it did before. The Vox are doing exactly what it wants, eliminating the only species that ever posed a threat to it. After a long moment, Director Lee nodded. Proceed, Commander, may our ancestors guide us. Ancestors who were also themselves, the paradox of humanity's true nature. Hana turned to her crew. Begin docking procedures with the Keystone. The horizon moved cautiously toward the enormous ancient vessel. As they approached, a section of its seemingly solid hull rippled and opened, revealing a docking bay that hadn't been visible moments before. It's recognizing us, Jin whispered in awe. Or recognizing what we carry, the genetic signature of its creators. The ship settled gently into the docking bay, the ancient vessel guiding their approach with invisible forces. When the horizon finally came to rest, the silence was profound after days of battle alarms and emergency warnings. How do we connect to its systems? Hana asked as they prepared to disembark. Jin stared at his hands. I think it's waiting for a direct interface. He approached the wall of the docking bay, which shimmered slightly at his proximity. Taking a deep breath, Jin placed his palm against the surface. The material flowed around his hand like quicksilver, neither solid nor liquid, and patterns of light raced up his arm. Jin gasped, his eyes widening. I see it all now. The full history, the plan, the reason. Tears streamed down his face. We weren't just hiding from the void. We were preparing to defeat it. The wall before them transformed, creating an archway leading deeper into the Keystone. Jin stepped back, his hand released from the living metal. The amplification chamber is at the core, he said with newfound certainty. The Keystone was designed for this exact moment, to restore us when the void returned. They followed Jin, through corridors that seemed to form just before they walked through them and dissolve behind them. The architecture was organic, alive in some fundamental way that made conventional ships seem crude by comparison. Finally, they reached a vast spherical chamber at the heart of the vessel. In its center floated a pulsing crystal structure that glowed with inner light. The genetic template, Jin explained, approaching it reverently. The complete uncorrupted DNA sequence of the masters, of what we once were. What we can be again, Sue added quietly. Hana stepped forward. How do we activate it? It needs a command from someone with authority, Jin replied. In the old hierarchy, you would have been... He stopped as if catching himself. You are a commander. The vessel will recognize your rank. Hana approached the crystal carefully. As she drew near, images formed in her mind, clearer than any of the fragmented memories she'd experienced before. She saw herself, not as she was now, but as she had been before, commanding not a single ship but a fleet of vessels like the Keystone, She saw worlds transformed by technology so advanced it seemed like magic, and she felt the crushing weight of the decision that had led to humanity's great forgetting. The crystal responded to her proximity, its light intensifying. Words came to Hana's lips, words in a language she had never learned but somehow knew perfectly. "Awaken," she commanded in the ancient tongue. "Remember." The crystal flared blindingly bright. Energy surged from it into the amplification equipment they had brought, then into the keystone systems. The entire vessel hummed with power as the signal, the complete genetic template, the key to full awakening, broadcast not just to Earth, but to every human settlement in the solar system and beyond. On the Horizon's communication system, reports began flooding in immediately. Massive neural activity detected across Earth's population, ancient installations activating on Mars. The dormant vessels, they're responding to human commands. Hana felt it herself. Not fragments now, but a complete restoration. Knowledge, skills, memories flowing into her mind like water filling an empty vessel. She remembered stars long dead, technologies not yet rediscovered, battles fought against the void millennia ago. Most importantly, she remembered why they had chosen this path, not just to hide but to evolve, to become something the void couldn't predict or understand, to approach the problem of their ancient enemy from a completely different perspective after countless failed attempts to defeat it directly. The Vox fleet has entered Earth orbit, Q called out, his voice pulling Hana back to the present crisis. They're powering weapons, but something was happening to the ancient vessels scattered throughout the solar system. As humans awakened to their true heritage, the ships recognized their long-lost commanders. Dormant defense systems activated. Weapons beyond current understanding powered up. On the communication channels, the first reports of counterattacks came in. Ancient vessels moving with impossible speed, intercepting Vox ships. Energy weapons that bypassed shields as if they weren't there. Defensive systems rendering Vox attacks harmless. They never stood a chance, Jin said quietly, watching the tactical display as the Vox fleet faltered, then broke apart in confusion. They thought they were protecting the galaxy from imposters, but they were actually serving the Void's purpose, keeping us from awakening. Through the Keystone systems, Hana opened a channel to the Vox command ship. The alien commander, a tall, ridge-headed being whose species had been engineered by the Vox's founders for war, stared back at her with 4 yellow eyes. "You do not understand what you face," Hana told it, speaking in the Vox language she now somehow knew. "The enemy of all life approaches. We are not your enemy. We are the guardians who stood against the void before, and will stand again." On screens throughout the Keystone, Hana could see the disturbances at the galaxy's edge growing. The void was coming, a force that consumed not just matter and energy but space-time itself, a hunger that had nearly devoured the galaxy once before. Around Earth, the other ancient vessels moved into formation with the Keystone. Across human space, billions of awakened minds reached out to technology that responded to their thoughts, their genetic commands. Ships that had lain dormant for 50,000 years rose from hiding places on moons, in gas giants, in the hearts of comets. The 7 alien species who had sought humanity's help in understanding the ancient vessels now watched in awe as humans took command of the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever known, not as newcomers to an old conflict, but as veterans returning to a war they had never truly left. "Send word to all ships," Hana commanded, feeling the weight of both her current rank and her ancient authority. "The time of hiding is over. The time of remembering has come. We face the void not as we were, but as we have become." Around her, the crew of the Horizon, now fully awakened to their dual nature as both modern humans and ancient masters, moved with new purpose, new understanding. The forgotten guardians had returned, and this time they would not retreat.